privilege and honor to be here today. Thank you, Milind and Gitanjali, for inviting me. Well, I'll be sharing my various experiences in business on how to raise capital for your business. But before I do that, I would like to know how many of you have raised capital for the business? Oh, there are quite a few. Well, how many of you have raised business capital for non-IT companies? Wonderful. Well, my experience that I'll be sharing today would be raising capital for non-IT companies. However, the processes are somewhat similar to IT company fundraising as well. I've been in the business for the last 20 years, and I've raised capital at least 14 different times for projects across the globe. A few of the projects that I've raised capital for have been in the field of hotels, airlines, horticulture, vineyard property purchase, construction of brand new hotels, mining of gold and diamonds in Africa, infrastructure projects, and distilling alcohol beverages in France. One of the common factors that in the fundraising process was I provided the seed capital to get the business started. Once the seed capital was there and the business got started, we did a round of funding investment with the angel investors, institutional investors, friends and family in different ways. So before I get into that and different ways of funding, let's start and see what do investors look for. Okay, the first and foremost is the business plan, of course. Second one, you need to look at it. Any business plan, when you take it to the investor, you need to have seed capital. You need to have your personal equity into the business other than sweat equity. And you got to believe in the product. You got to have the skin in the game before you're going to pitch it to an investor. The budget forecast. I mean, you have to have a full understanding of complete capitalization. Most of the businesses that you look at, they're either undercapitalized or not proper capital structure. The second part of it is a good management team. Your business is as good as your management team. So having a good management team with board advisors and the market landscape. Well, this speaks about your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities. Now, the key factor again here is you got to clearly define your capital structure, capital requirement, and your debt equity ratio. From investor standpoint, he would like to see what your exit strategy is. And the most important part, return on investment. For different ways of funding, number one I spoke about is personal investment. That probably is the seed capital that you would start with. You cannot have any project started without having a seed capital. And most of the situations, the seed capital will come from the person who has the idea or the concept. Friends and family is another way relatively easy to pitch to. If you believe in it, and like Nikhil said, the first group that you go after your personal injection is your friends and family. I mean, if you believe in it and you have strong conviction, then that's probably you want to be at the next stage. That, okay, you have a business idea and whether you would like to be a part of it. And with the cultural issues and emotional issues that you talk about, like what if it fails? Well, you need to be very clear on what your expectations are from that friend and family. Because any business, I mean, there are chances that it's going to fail. But do you believe in it and do they believe in it? So there is not a forced investment. If they believe in it, they'll invest in it. Well, one of the businesses were funded, the initial businesses was through SBA funding. Now this is like a small business administration loans in the United States, which basically you go in as a first-timer into the business. These are mostly recourse loans, so you would be liable for the repayment if your business fails, and they'll go after you. So most of these loans are on tangible assets or a real asset, and not intangible. So you got to carefully look at it. Secondly, these are the business fundings where you have a tangible asset and you basically go into a little bit higher. It's a more expensive way of getting funds, but is more assured as your startup business. The next one goes into the commercial banking, the conventional loans from different institutions, banking, commercial banking here. But these are with a more personal equity injection, somewhere between 20 to 30%. And again, in this commercial banking, again, you're looking at a tangible asset. You're looking at either for hotel construction or beverage plazas or real estate, anything real estate based where they're securing their investment through the valuation of the property. So typically loan to value is about 70% or so. Now, these angel investors, some of the investments that we've gotten from angel investors have been for projects outside the United States or projects which do not have a tangible asset, like a real estate or a land. And angel investors, again, these are again group of high net worth individuals, or they might be some private equity that come in as well. But these group, I mean, again, when you talk about angel investors and you pitch in, they're looking at, I mean, just put yourself in the situation, like you want to invest in a project. You don't want to be the first one, or you don't want to be the biggest one. You want to see what are the calculated risks on it. I mean, how much risk it is on losing the capital. So angel investors are no different than you and me. When they're trying to put money in your project, they want to try to see how much risk they're taking. And again, pitching with them, if you say, for example, you have a project of, say, $2 million, an example, and you go to the first one and say, hey, I only got 25,000 in the company, and you're the first one I'm going to go. That's a totally different conversation than when you have, it's like $1 million raised and you're raising the last round. So these are different scenarios that you look into when you go into the investments. Private equity. Okay, on the private equity players, I mean, again, these are the ones who would want to come in as an equity position, or they would like to come in on a board as a board seat. But they don't want to be the only money in the deal. Typically on the private equity, my experience has been that their interest lies in either expanding their portfolio or going into new avenues of investment. And we have certainly used private equity to raise about $6 million for mining projects. Now these private equity firms, again, the same thing. These are mostly non-recourse investments. So when they invested, they believe in it, they basically have a risk of losing capital. But when you go with them, the number one fundamental thing that I've learned with private equity, and this comes to the institutional investment, I'll cover that in the next slide, is remember this 10, 40, 50. I mean, probably you would not probably get it in any book, but when you pitch with a product and you have 1 hour, only 10% of the time is to be spent on a product. The investor is not interested in your product as much. Of course, without a product, there is no investment. The 40% of the time is spent on your management team. What your management team is about, who's doing the execution. Because for, say in this room, if you're together, and when you pitch in a product, mostly the investor is investing in you as a person. So they're looking at who's the execution team, who's going to execute the product. And the remaining 50% of the time is spent on capital structure and how the investments are going to be returned back. So that 10, 40, 50 is very critical, and we learn it hard way. Again, every investor you pitch in, it has a different appetite, a different domain structure where he wants to invest. So it's very important that you spend at least 50% of the time in understanding the capital structure, explain to him and how the capital structure works. Product is only 10%. And most of the mistakes we made initially was we would pitch in as the best product in the world. Investor doesn't care for that. He gets 10 different investment opportunities every day. So it's more about how's your capital structure and how's your management team who's executing it. This is a similar scenario on the institutional investment as well. I mean, these are all large investment projects. We had institutional investment like JP Morgan investing in the airline project in Southeast Asia. And these are like in the capacity of 25, 50 million, whatever the appetite your company has on investing. But these institutional investors would not come in unless they have a substantial project size that you have on a project. In conclusion, I'd like to give a story of a Chinese bamboo tree. I'm sure many of you have already heard heard it. You plant the seed in the soil and keep watering it, nurturing it for the first year, second year, third year, up to 5 years, and you don't see any result. You don't see anything happening. But you got to keep nurturing it with watering. After 5 years, you start seeing a small sprout come out. And in the next 6 weeks, you see the tree grow up to 90 feet. So the question, you can literally see the tree grow 4 to 5 feet every day. So what was it doing for the first 5 years? What it was laying the foundation so that it could withstand the height of 90 feet. So thank you very much, gentlemen, and I'll give it to